Everyone, today is Saturday, June 13th, 2020, and this is a Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is GreenRanger, and I'm actually recording this Friday night. I do that sometimes. For the podcast, I sneak parts in the day before, but the reason I'm doing this is because I want to devote as much time as I could to Stage 2 of the Grand Tournament. And that's really all that is going on in Duel Links this week. We pretty much have no content at all. And, this is done on purpose, obviously. Konami wants people to devote their time to the Grand Tournament. And in the spirit of that, I decided, why not? Let's go with it. So, I'm going to talk all about that today. In lieu of content, talk about esports, various tournaments that have gone on in the week. Talk about 5 tournaments. All kicked off with Duel Links Meta Championship Series 31, which I saw a lot of it myself on Twitch. It's one of the first times I've watched an MCS in a while, so glad to get in the mode of it with it. We'll talk about some of the weekly tournaments as well. Podcast question of the week. How much are you try-harding for the KC Grand Tournament? There's going to be a feature about Stage 2, my experiences with it so far. I'm actually doing very well. I just need to put the games in, of course. I'm sorry for the noise. There's trains going by and I have the window open. It's going to be this Synchro Toolbox discussion talking about how I face every single deck. I think I'm going to try to do that. Dimmaduel is back. He has his casual deck of the week, and this is not really a casual deck. It's the deck he used to get through Stage 1 of the KC Grand Tournament. So, that's the most important thing, getting through Stage 1 to get those guaranteed gems. And if you're struggling to find a deck, this might be the right one for you. Got him through it. So, Blue Eyes, White Dragon deck coming up later. So my week in Duel World, as I said, I'm getting into the spirit of things, trying to do as many duels as I can in Stage 2 of the Grand Tournament. I'm actually close to an 80% win rate, which is crazy, like 78 maybe, right now on Friday night. I'm going to try to grind some games in later on. With small sample sizes, you get to crazy percentages, and I don't expect to end up in the 78% by the time it's all said and done. Let's say I put in enough games and such a high win rate, I would definitely be a top 100 player. But I know, as much as I'm tryharding, I'm not going to be a top 100 player. I just can't devote the time. I don't have the spirit to stay up all night. I don't have the energy, frankly, just to game as much as the top 100 will. So I already know that's on the horizon, that I won't hit top 100. It's more about self-validation at this point, just getting something out of the game. I want to be good, playing the most meaningful games I can. That's why I'm doing it. So, Synchro Toolbox is working very well. We'll talk about it more later on. And in the ranked scene, I was able to hit Legend 4 yesterday. I was trying to hit King of Games before the Stage 2 began, but frankly, ranked duels is more difficult than the KC Grand Tournament, and people are trying to play their decks before the nerfs go in. I think one thing we can expect is after this part of the KC Grand Tournament, there's going to be some new box or some nerf, and this is going to be possibly the meta heading into the finals in August, and that's going to be it before XZs comes. So this could be some people's last chance at hitting King of Games with their current decks. All right, let's get into esports, talking about some decks that are, this is kind of like a lead-in to what you're playing for the KC Grand Tournament, and also looking at the meta right now. Duel Links Meta Championship Series 31. First place, Zaga, level augmentation, Shiranui. This deck is notable for running needle sealing, and I saw this deck win a bunch of games in the tournament, and there's a bit of a combo you do with Shiranui Sun Saga and Zombie Archfiend Zombie Skull. It's such an important card, the Zombie Skull. They both keep each other alive. Needle Sealing, you just hit the board up. Those two cards will survive the Needle Sealing, and they contribute 2 monsters to the board. So, all in all, great thing to do there. And other cards in this deck: 2 Artifact Lanceas, 2 Sphere Kribo, 3 Solitaire, 3 Squire, 2 Spectral Sword, 2 Forbidden Lance, 2 Ballista Squad, 1 Divine Wrath, 2 Fiendish Chains. Really, all these cards are great meta cards. And Shiranui always have been a deck that could fit in all those slots. Second place, Herbal, Tie That Binds Cristrons. This is an interesting build because it doesn't run the Sea Stealth or the Whale, but it does have the other components: Gen X Undyne to tutor, Gen X Controller that takes up 5 slots in the deck. Otherwise, a pretty generic Crystron deck. 2 Artifact Lancia attack cards, 3 Sulfenir, 2 Smiger, 2 Fist-Vern, 3 Scrap Recycles, 2 Citri, 1 Rose Nyx, 2 Ryan, 1 Praise Tortle, 3 Cosmic, 1 Forbidden Lance, 3 Crystron Impact. And I noticed in the tournament itself, Paladin Zectron's probably one of the most important synchro monsters for Crystrons. Helps them get through, survive attacks. And it's actually one of the earliest synchro cards in the game. So sometimes you underlook those really early synchro monsters, but this was one of the first ones, I think. Up 4, -1, Mythic Depths Crystrons. This is the Sea Stealth version. Full Citadel Whale. 3 whales, 3 Sea Stealth attacks. Typically, you don't see this 3/3 thing. There's no room for tech cards here. It's a 27 card deck. No Cosmic Cyclones, no Forbidden Lances, no Artifact Lanceas. Just full on whale deck. Citadel whales. We have 3 of those by now. Top 4K Tie That Binds Ritual Beast. This kind of starts a trend this week with Ritual Beasts. You see a bunch of them in the top 4. It really looks the same. 3 Winda, 3 Spheres, 3 Canahawk, 1 Dolphin, and Petalfin, 1 Rampengu, 2 Elders, Apelio, 1 Lara, 3 Cosmic, 1 Herald of the Abyss, 1 Ritual Beast Return, 1 Ritual Beast Bond. Yeah, not much to say. Straight up OTK deck. There's some stall, like with Sir Kribo. Kind of reminds me of the it's like Yosenju deck that was showing up. They do stall a bit too, and they do the 1-turn kill as well. Move on to the next tournament I will talk about, SGL tournament number 17. First place, Max K, Sealed Tombs, Dark Magician. Sealed Tombs is fine losing life. That's what they do. So you just jam in those Cosmic Cyclones, Herald of the Abyss, catching on. And does a 1/1 split. 1 Dark Magician, Magician of Dark Illusion, 1 Treacherous. This is typically what most decks do. They do split up the semi-limit cards. No Eye of Timaeus shenanigans in this deck, though. Second place, Me Maker, Level, Augmentation, Shiranui. Straight up, Shiranui is just a back row deck. That's the best way to describe it. Whenever you can negate traps against them, that's what you do. And nothing remarkable here. 2 Lancia, 1 Gozuki, 1 Sphere, 2 Solitaire, 3 Squire, 2 Spectral Sword, 2 Lance, 3 Ballista Squad, 2 Fiendish Chain, 2 Floodgates. This is pretty typical. I mean, the previous deck we saw 3 Solitaires, I think, and there's Gozuki in this one instead. Ballista Squad, Fiendish Chain, Forbidden Lance, Lancia, Floodgate. It's all pretty good cards. Top 4, Hexy, Mythic Depths, Sea Stealth, Attack, Crystrons. more conventional water deck. It doesn't run the 3 whales and 3 sea stealths like the one did before. Just 1 whale here and 2 sea stealth attacks. Gives room for those tech cards like 3 cosmic cyclones, but that's all the tech cards that are going on here. Crystalline Impact is typically good enough that you don't need too many tech cards for the deck. And top 4, Giampi, Destiny Draw, Invoked, Element Saber. There's some meta techs here. Debunk, that plays around any of those hand traps, Artifact Lancia or Spheres. And Typhoon. Typhoon is a card that works well against field spells, equip spells, things like that. And typically sometimes this deck runs another semi-limit card with Magellonica, and that's usually Concentrating Current. This deck bucks the trend, though. It runs a copy of World Legacy Clash. Sometimes you use that card. I mean, it's a debuff card, but sometimes you use it just to negate an attack. Next up is Battle Phase number 65. Zaid King, first place. Restart, Ritual Beast. Nothing remarkable here. The previous one we looked at was 21 cards. This one's 20. You still got Cosmic Cyclone, Herald of the Abyss to clear the way. 2 spheres to help you stall a little bit in case you don't get your perfect hand. And it's to note that the nerf on Ritual Beast, Tamer, Elder became semi-limited. That's really what the nerf was for Ritual Beast when that big round of nerfs went through. And nothing really changed for the deck at all. It just remains this tier 3 OTK deck and nothing has changed about it. Still functions the same way with and without the nerfs. Second place, Francisco, See You Later, Lightsworn Cristrons. So, Lightsworns are being used as an engine to help populate the graveyard of Crystron monsters. 3 Charge of the Light Brigade, 1 Raiden, and 1 Lila. Typically you see 2 Raidens instead. There is a Lila here to help combat back row. Also runs 2 Ballista Squads. Same purpose, really. Can use it more aggressively if you want. It also helps populate the graveyard. And top 4, BD, Francisco, second place. This is top 4, Cyber-style Cyber Dragons. Typically, you don't see Econ. There's 2 Econs here as the semi-limit choice. Usually, they go the more aggressive route with Hatrunades or Concentrating Currents. Otherwise, pretty typical Cyber Dragon deck. 1 Cyber Dragon, 3 Veer, 3 Cores, 3 Cosmic, 1 Herald of the Abyss, 3 Cyberload Fusion, 1 Cybernetic Fusion Support, the 2 Econ I mentioned, and 3 Cybernetic Overflows. This avoids the Fusion Gate shenanigans. And top 4, Nyx, Destiny Draw, Element Saber, Invoked. Here we see 3 copies of Spiritual Beast, Tamer, Winda, and it's being splashed as a floater. Deck thinning, floating, whatever. It helps you can keep a bigger deck with a filler like this. If you have the 3 Windas, it works, helps protect your board, as long as they don't have piercing. It's got okay defense, 1800. She thins, just a bunch of other things. So that's it with Battle Phase 65. Let's move on to Duel Links Meta Weekly number 128. First place, Juked, Peak Performance, Blackwings. Typically when you see Peak Performance, they're playing Blackwings, so it's a sign. There's a whole spotlight and interview with this guy here. You could see all the reasoning he has for building the deck the way he does. 3 copies of Blackbird Close, he says the best hand trap in the game. He also does this unconventional split. 2 copies of Bora, Zephyros, and Chris. Second place, Zico, See You Later, Lightsworn Cristrons. We don't really see this version too often with the Lightsworns, but this one's the typical 2 Raiden, 3 Charge of the Light Brigade mix. 3 copies of Nightbeam. They can run Cosmic Cyclone, so because of the limit 3 on Charge of the Light Brigade, so 3 Night Beams, pretty much the same thing. And this also runs a copy of Crystron Entry. The trap card you typically just see Impact. Here is Crystron Entry. Does some level modulation stuff. Top 4, Umu, Level Augmentation Shiranui. This is a notable deck for running 2 copies of Chain Disappearance. This could be an interesting tech card in the tournament. It works against Alistair. That's the main one. Crystron's, Shiranui, and more. So it could be good in the right spot if the meta shifts a certain way. And top 4, Herbal, Tie That Binds. Crystron's, we saw him win in our tournament before. No Whale or Sea Stealth in this version. Just Gen X Undyne and Controller for tutoring. Otherwise, a lot of tech slots, Artifact Lancias, Cosmic Cyclones, Forbidden Lances, to name a few tech cards. And the last tournament I'll be discussed in this parade is Pharaoh's Cash Tournament number 76. First place, Yugioh 1403 Restart Ritual Beast. Nothing to note here. The thing about Ritual Beast is they're taking all these games in the top 4. That means they could beat any deck, really. But it's all about time sometimes, so they do so many moves. You could risk timing out if... internet's kind of unstable in Duel Links, I've noticed. You could just lose when the train goes by. That's what happens to me sometimes, so... They could just make so many moves, and if you have bad internet, that could cost you a game. So, it's kind of stupid, but that's the truth. Second place, Clara, Draw Sense, Low Level, Dark Magician. You never really see the skill, and this deck is a bit unconventional. Low levels obviously draw a copy of Magician's Rod. Only 2 copies of Magician of Dark Illusion. There's no split with another Treacherous Trap Hole or anything like that, or Econ. So interesting choice there. Also runs Paleozoic Canadia, which is a card you typically don't see in Dark Magician. A Drowning Mirror Force. I guess this deck bricks a little bit, so they have a Drowning Mirror Force. None of that extra banished stuff like Kaiku or Knight's End Sorcerer either. No copies of Dark Magic Expanded either. Top 4, Uchiha David with a very spicy deck. This is a Neospace Toolbox Neo, so I just named it Toolbox myself. Very amalgamated deck that uses that other fusion material. So when you're playing Neos Fusion, you fuse Neos with another monster. There's a toolbox going on here. Ra's Disciple. That is to work with the 3 copies of Give and Take. This is to negate all special summons on your opponent. So you could just end the duel right there sometimes. There's a copy of Bacon Saver for protection in your fusion. And the third choice is Lunalight Crimson Fox. A very popular choice in Neos decks that turns easy 1-turn kills, makes their monsters attack 0. So, besides that, there is Favorite Hero and Necro Valley. That goes with the Neospace Field Spell, and another Tech and Necro Valley, and Favorite Hero for quick OTKs. And also runs 2 copies of Mask Change to allow you to play Koga for an even bigger beater. And top 4, Mr. Winner, Neospace. Neos, this is a more conventional looking deck. 2 Neos Alias, 3 Keeper of Dragon Magic, 1 Bacon Saver, 2 Neos, 2 Cosmic, 1 Necro Valley, 2 Favorite Hero, 3 Mass Change, 2 Neos Fusion, 1 Fiendish Chain, and 1 Floodgate. Duel Links Meta updated their tier list in the middle of the week. Kind of the rundown of the KC Grand Tournament. Tier 1 undoubtedly is Crystron's. Crystron Impact really just shuts down stuff. They're quick synchro plays. Very well-rounded deck. Clearly tier 1. Decade pointed out that one weakness of them is that they have very long mirror matches, and the deck is a control deck in general, so they do have very long matches, and that could work against the first place player being a Crystron player, since time it works to their advantage to have a fast deck for a tournament like this. That's all about amassing cumulative points rather than a win percentage per se. Tier 2, we got a bunch of good decks: Element Sabers, Black Wings, Masked Heroes, and Shiranui. Not much to say, they all kind of fight each other. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses. Tier 3, we have Cyber Dragon, Dark Magician, Ritual Beasts. Ritual Beasts, they do that thing where they're stealing wins every so often. Cyber Dragon and Dark Magician are kind of like old hat. Like, everyone knows what they're doing, so that's what I feel like sometimes. High Potential Goki are still in High Potential, and Mayakashi have been dropped off the tier list. Let's move on to the discussion of the KC Grand Tournament. Let's start off with the podcast question of the week. How much are you tryharding for the KC Grand Tournament? Top 100, baby, 19%. Doing my best in Stage 2, only 24%. Stage 1 and done, 38%. And 19% are not even trying. I get it, not playing meta decks or whatever, but if you're missing out on gems, you're missing out on gems. So I would encourage everyone to try to get through Stage 1 at least. Doug Dimmaduel has a Blue Eyes deck, which we'll discuss after my segment here, and that'll help you get through Stage 1. Really, you have the whole tournament to get through Stage 1, and then who cares after that, right? Top 100, I'm not going to get it, but I'm just going to do my best. I guess I'm doing my best. I'm somewhere in between doing my best and top 100. I'm not going to hit top 100, maybe. Let's get to the main thing I want to talk about this week, and that is KC Grand Tournament, in my eyes, how well Akiza Synchro Toolbox is doing against the meta. And this is going to be a bit of a specialist discussion, if you will. I've really fallen in love with this deck, and getting to know it. I've been playing it pretty much the past month, and it's worked great against this meta right now. So, let's talk about the matchups. What do you do typically, and things like that. So, for anyone who is not initiated to me talking about this deck for the last month, this is the level. They call it Synchro Toolbox in Duel Links meta. Really, what it is using Akiza to bring out level 5 and 6 synchro plays. So Akiza Dark Verger, that's the skill that you use. What grows in the graveyard, it's officially called. And to build the deck, you need 3 copies of Angel Trumpeter, 2 copies of Junk Synchron, 2 copies of forgetting this card's name. One of the shark. Shoot, what's it called? Painful Decision. Alright, so this, you adjust this based on how often you brick, obviously. Angel Trumpeter can't be replaced, that you need 3 of that. Junk Synchron, you would want fewer than Angel Trumpeter, so that's why there's only 2. And then if you have 3 Painful Decision, it's not the worst idea, but sometimes you only use 1 Painful Decision the whole game, so 2 kind of hedges it, so you extend, but you have an opener, but you don't waste too many cards. And if you have 3 Painful Decisions, you maximize your chances of having a good opening hand, but then you also have 2 dead cards. So that's what it is there. 3 copies of Synchro Boost. This is kind of the main card of the deck as well to power up your monsters. And the rest of the deck is like attack cards. I put 3 copies of Forbidden Lance. This is just to get around. It's a great card in the meta. Gets around back row hitting your monsters when you synchro summon. Helps your opponent waste cards, so you waste their spells that target their own things. And you also use it as a combat trick. So there's a lot of uses for that card. I have 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. This deck does OTK sometimes, so it's useful for that. Just a generally good, useful removal tool. 2 copies of Sphere Kribo. This is another tech card. Previously, it was something else. And then 2 copies of Void Trap Hole, general tech card against the meta right now, and 1 copy of Treacherous. As for the Synchro deck itself, the extra deck itself, most important card is Archfiend's Call, Untargetable, 2500. Naturia Barkion's also very important. Negates all those trap cards when needed. Brionic's important. Helps you do your OTKs. Goyo Guardian, kind of least important, level 6, but it's their highest attack and helps you get by graveyard effects from your opponent. And then the level 5s, you got Armades to help hit monsters with effects, help get by hand traps, and Crystron Amatrix to help flip monsters into defense. So that's the deck. Let's talk about how you face the meta. Tier 1 Crystrons. Bad matchup. They have unorthodox synchro summoning you can't stop. So they have Crystron Amatrix themselves, obviously, so they do that synchro summon. Your monsters are typically weak in defense. The main, synchro play here is Archfiend's Call, and that's a summon skull, so it has 1200 defense. Naturia Barkion has 1800 defense. Brionic has 1400. Royal Guardian has 2000, I guess. Armades has 1300. So yeah, they get flipped over to a weak side. Crystron Quadrant Gandrix also banishes 3 cards. So if they get that quick synchro off, they could banish your Dark Verger. The only card that doesn't get hit is like Archfiend's Call. So you have that out. That's fine. But against Dark Verger, it's a bad start. Sometimes you have a chance against the build that uses Sea Stealth attack, and when you know that's happening, you try to get out your Naturia Barkion as fast as you could, because Crystron Impact is a trap card and also Sea Stealth. So if you could negate those cards, you have a shot. But typically, I found that Crystrons are a pretty tough matchup against. They're a tough matchup against everyone. That's a tier 1. The next bad matchup is Shiranui. Not Shiranui. Element Sabers. And the biggest bugaboo of Akiza's deck is Dark Verger is an Earth attribute. So if they go first, they have Alistair. They're going to banish your Dark Verger to make Magilonica. And then you have no plays. Like, it's pretty much impossible to come back from a game like that, where you might get lucky with like a treacherous trap hole or something, but there's no way you're playing Synchro Toolbox, you got no synchros, you're not going to win the game. So if you do go first, though, and you get the goal is to get Archfiend's Call down with a synchro boost. So it's the only monster that's immune to Element Saber Malehu flipping you to defense mode, so it can't be targeted. If you do get Archfiend's Call down, you try to boost it up with the synchro boost, so it's 4400 attack. Helps you get by Magilonica with a 1000 attack boost. Decent follow-up is Naturia Barkion, since Element Sabers do play a ton of trap cards, so you can help negate all those trap cards. Eventually, their monsters will get over your boosted Archfiend's Call. They could fill their monsters. They pretty much just chump block for the whole game, and then they fill up their graveyard with monsters, and then they turn them into different attributes, and then they could get over your monster. So it also doesn't help. Magilonica is a normal monster with no effect, so it gets by Void Trap Hole. Coxidus also usually gets over Void Trap Hole unless there's a lot of stuff in the graveyard from being chump blocked. So there are a lot of weaknesses against Element Saber invoked. Now, if they focus on getting Purgatrio, they ignore your Dark Verger, they're in trouble. Like, you could just Void Trap Hole that guy off, And a very important card against this deck is Forbidden Lance. You make them waste their invocation. So typically you're going to set that card against this deck. They play Alistair. You hit Alistair with Forbidden Lance when they use invocation, so they waste the card. Next up is Shiranui. Shiranui are just a good deck, so I would consider this one kind of like a even match. It's a coin flip. Because they are a trap deck, you try to get Naturian and Barkion out first. Archfiend's Call is good sometimes too, so you have to make a call about how many trap cards you have or who you want to negate first. It really depends, but you probably need to use Forbidden Lance to get your synchro off because they have so many trap cards. So you're going to need to keep one in hand, so don't set your Lance. You keep it in your hand so you know to quick play it. Sphere Kariba also helps a lot. Their monsters have 0 defense, so that's kind of why it's there to fight Shiranui, because they're so good. And you have to be aware about putting stuff into the graveyard, because they synchro play from the graveyard. So when you can use Brionac to remove their stuff off the board, so you just waste their resources, and they can't reuse their resources. And their monsters get super strong too, so sometimes a synchro boost isn't enough to get over their high attacks. And speaking of the resource management, sometimes the Goyo Guardian's useful, so you could steal their monster. Let's say they play a monster on the board, no back row, you could just steal their monster. Blackwings are a decent matchup against. You try to get Archfiend's Call with Synchro Boost when you go first, and then that guy just plays around Raikiri and Gale, and that's pretty much it. Like you're good to go once you have that down. If you're going second, you try to get the Brionac play off if you could see that, because they don't typically play back row. Try to banish Black Whirlwind or Necro Valley with a Cosmic Cyclone when you see those cards. Their special summons are easily countered with Void Trap Hole, because Shiranui, they get hit with Void Trap Hole and then they could do something else. These guys typically can't do that. They don't have as great of a comeback. It's kind of dependent on how many Black Whirlwinds they have in their hand and whether they could get other monsters out. I do want to note that Blackwings do have Blackbird Close, and I think Barkion doesn't protect against it, even though it's a trap card. So Barkion doesn't do much against Blackwings. Masked Heroes, this is pure Masked Heroes. Sphere Kariba is useful against those mask change plays. Enki is going to be bigger than your monsters because it's 2800, so sometimes having a Goyo Guardian is useful so that they can't hit over your monster. This is only if you don't have Synchro Boost, so if you have Synchro Boost, might as well play your Summon Skull. And yeah, Forbidden Chalice is also a card you want to set against Masked Hero, because you can make them waste their mask change. Cyber Dragon, easy matchup. Cybernetic Overflow is the main concern though, so you try to hit that card when you know with a Cosmic Cyclone, or get Barkion out so you can negate it. Cybernetic Overflow is a problem, not only because it sets up their plays, but it doesn't target, so it gets by Archfiend's Call. So Archfiend's Call is a fine play if you know they don't have Overflow though. Cyber Twin Dragon and Cyber End come out sometimes. There are 2800 and 4000 respectively. Sometimes they get a Chimera Tech over Dragon too. So sometimes they can hit over your monsters, so you have to use your protection wisely. Ritual Beasts, all I'm saying is like say a prayer and hope they don't have the OTK. Dark Magician, easy matchup. You know what they're doing. Synchro Boost on Archfiend's Call is typically good enough to win the game. Sometimes their the guy called Dark Cavalry is bigger than your guy. If their graveyard's kind of full, they could be bigger than you, so beware of that. Forbidden Lance, useful against Dark Magic Expanded and I have Timaeus. Otherwise, Archfiend's Call first, then Barkion second. Other notable decks, Gookies. Gookies, they Synchro Boost is useful against the deck because they're so battle reliant. They could turn their monsters to like 3600, 3800. I forget I think it's 3400 actually. But it's useful to have a stronger monster than them, so they can't hit over you. So yeah, Archfiend's Call and the Naturia Barkion are fine with a Synchro Boost. My Akashis, their abilities don't target, so if they can get that off against your Archfiend's Call, you're in trouble. Goyle Guardian's not a bad call sometimes, just to steal their monsters. Favorite hero Neos decks. These monsters get real big. They can hit over your Synchro Boost very easily, so make sure you have Cosmic Cyclone ready to hit the favorite hero when that plays. Forbidden Lance also helps you buy a turn sometimes. It's not the easiest matchup, this one. Blue Eyes, you could just play around with a few Synchro monsters. Goyle Guardian, they set the Dragonstone down, you hit it, you steal it. That's pretty much it. If they play the Maiden, you could try to get Armades out, hit them for big damage if they play the Maiden, because they're expecting no one to attack it, but then you play Armades. Synchro Boost on Archfiend's Call is typically good enough to beat the deck. Luna Lights, Archfiend's Call all the way. It's the only card that gets around the target of Crimson Fox and Cat Dancer. Sometimes they'll just stall with Cat Dancer though, so in that case you wait till you get your Brionac out and then bounce Brionac back so you can end them. Light Sworns. It's good most decks are running Levianeer because Levianeer targets, and Archfiend's Call is safe against that. Judgment Dragon doesn't target, so it'll hit your cards, and no way to play around that. Black Rose Dragon is another concern, so they could just blow up the board. You can't really protect against that. Otherwise, look for the Brionac one-turn kill because they don't play back row. Magician Girls. Magician Girls could be a problem because they run Alistair, so if they hit you turn 1 with a Magellanica, you're pretty much done. If they just play a Magician Girl, though, you get Armades out and hit them. So, yeah. Have Void Trap Hole ready for Quintet Magician. Super Heavy Samurais. They have really nutty hands sometimes. They could just end you with the Ninja, so the Ninja also plays around Sphere Karibo and Void Trap Hole, so that is a problem if they have that bomb hand. Otherwise, get Archfiend's Call out quickly, so that card plays around the Fist. Brionnac's also a fine play if you're going second and you have a clear one-turn kill. They put their monster out, and there's no way to play around it. As long as they don't have the Fist in the graveyard. Dragoonides are a deck that you're seeing a huge rise. Usually they're playing Bandit Keith and Switcheroo. The deck can't play around a boosted Archfiend's Call, though, so their monster is like 3,300, you have 4,400, and then they target banish. They can't target banish you, so that's what you do. You get your Synchro Boosted Archfiend's Call. Otherwise, if they go first and they play that monster, you bounce them back with Brionac and one-turn kill. Aramages. So you try to get your Synchro Boosted Archfiend's Call out quickly. Otherwise, you have to. This is also another tough matchup. It takes a long time too, because that's a bit annoying for a tournament like this where time is of the essence. So, you try to get over Bergamot. That's typically what the deal is. I'm not sure if Rosemary targets. I feel like it does. So your Archfiend's Call will be safe against position flipping, but they can get kind of annoying. But sometimes I have beats one of them by decking them out. And finally, stall decks. Naturia Barkion's typically the play because you want to play around trap cards, but sometimes you grab the one-turn kill if you have it with Brionac. Sometimes you play Archfiend's Call. Mostly it's going to be Naturia Barkion, though. It also punches stuff out of the graveyard, so you have less stuff for Shadow Game. You can't play around Lava Golem, though, even though that guy doesn't target Archfiend's Call, so you have to keep your board as clean as possible, be less aggressive, but be smart. Alright, that is it for this drawn-out discussion on Akiza's Toolbox. other tips just generally when you're playing against the Kaiba Cup, know what your opponent's playing, know the meta. That's kind of what I did here. I did a meta analysis in some ways. If they're playing a certain character, know what it is. Kaiba's playing Black Wings. Mako Tsunami's playing Crystron. Yugi's playing Element Sabers. Jiranui could be any of those 5Ds characters because they use level AUG. Crow's playing Black Wings. Masked Hero could be anyone. There's some Jaden stuff with Masked Hero and Favorite Hero, so that's him. Zane's playing Cyber Dragon. Ritual Beast could be anyone. Yugi's probably playing Dark Magician. It could be a Shizu. Guki, Tie That Binds, so Little Yugi. My Akashi, I'm not really sure. Blue Eyes is going to be DSOD Kaiba. Luna Light is going to be some Grit player. Light Sworns, that could be anything. Magician Girls are Yugi. Super Heavy Samurai is a Grit player. Bandit Keith, Switcheroo is Dragoonity. Air Mages, I've seen this typically a balance, I guess. And Merrick is playing some kind of stall deck. Doug Dimmaduel is back with his casual deck of the week. This week, the deck is centered on the KC Grand Tournament, playing Blue Eyes White Dragon because Kaiba. This deck is a little unconventional in build. It involves a card called Justi-break, in case you ever missed that card. So here is Doug's casual deck of the week, which he used in Stage 1 of the Grand Tournament.
Hey there, this is Doug Dimmaduel with Doug's Casual Deck of the Week. So this week for the KC Cup, because it's run by Kaiba, of course we had to build a Blue Eyes deck, one that is somewhat competitive. Really, the whole end goal is to use one of the new UR, well, I guess it's not new anymore, it's one of the older URs, but Justi-break. And if you remember what this one is, activate only when your opponent declares an attack against a face-up normal monster you control. Destroy all monsters on the field except for face-up attack position normal monsters. So really the goal is to get a Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field because it's a normal monster. Keep it in attack mode. Let your opponent get some real beefy, strong monster on there, and then just blow up their board using Justi-break. But in case that's not enough, I want to run my 3 copies of Burst Stream of Destruction. If you control a Blue Eyes White Dragon, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. Blue Eyes White Dragon cannot attack the turn you activate this card. And then for good measure, your Majesty with Eyes of Blue. It's a good combo with your Maiden with Eyes of Blue as well if you want to get some quick summons onto the field and get into some synchro plays. So the extra deck is made up of my 2 Blue Eyes Spirit Dragons, 2 Vermilion Dragon Mechs, and the 2 Azure Eyes Silver Dragon. Now the combo is get your Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon onto the field. It can negate effects in the graveyard, which is great in this current meta. But then during your opponent's turn, I would use the second effect to get out your Azure Eyes Silver Dragon. Now, the thing with your Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon is that whatever synchro monster you put on the field, it's going to get destroyed at the end of the turn. But Azure Eyes Silver Dragon cannot be destroyed the turn that it's special summoned, or that it's summoned onto the field. So it keeps it on the field. Next turn, you're able to special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon or a Blue Eyes monster from your graveyard. So you're able to get your Dragon Spirit of White or your Blue Eyes back out onto the field. It's a very effective combo, but it pairs well with Burst Stream of Destruction. You could blow up your opponent's monsters and then get into a Synchro Summon to then use a Vermilion Dragon Mech or to use your Blue Eye Spirit Dragon to hopefully almost swing for game, if anything. But yeah, so really what it's made up of is those 3 Maiden with Eyes of Blue. If you remember what this one is, when this card's targeted for an attack, you can negate the attack, and if you do, change the battle position of this card. Then you can special summon 1 Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So that's really what we're using here. It pairs well with Sage with Eyes of Blue. When this card is normal summoned, you can add 1 level 1 Light Tuner, okay, but the other effect is you can discard this card, then target an effect monster you control, send it to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon 1 Blue Eyes monster from your deck. So it works out nicely because this can get out your Dragon Spirit of White if you want to banish some back row. you can make some magic happen with this. And then just for good measure, 2 copies of the White Stone of the Ancients, just because it would be nice. It's like a delayed effect. When it's in your graveyard at the end of the turn, you can special summon a Blue Eyes monster from your deck. So depending on when you need your Dragon Spirit of White, which is frequent, there's a lot of back row stuff. So I'll run those 2 copies of the Dragon Spirit of White in the deck, because whenever it's summoned, you can banish one of your opponent's spell or trap cards. So really, it's a very straightforward deck. It's a very simple deck, but what I like to do is just, the strategy is a little bit different than what we normally go through, but having Justi-break is a very good addition, one that I kind of didn't really consider in the first place. I was too busy trying to do Gemini decks or something along those lines, but this pairs well with the Blue Eyes deck, in my opinion, especially with so many 3,000 beaters in the game where they're going to try and swing over your Blue Eyes. This trap card makes it adds that extra level of protection, while if it succeeds, it really clears the board for your next turn, so you could go in and hopefully swing for game. So, yeah, I used this for a little ways through the KC Cup. I had to switch to something more meta-driven. For those of you who've been following me on Twitter, you probably know very well that I had to round things out with, unfortunately, a Dark Magician deck, which I'm just getting tired of at this point. But, you got to do what you got to do, right? But the Blue Eyes was fun. I kind of want to get into the spirit of the KC Cup, so the Blue Eyes deck really got me through a good chunk of the Stage 1 matches until I started getting into the level 20 range or the level 18 range. So, but anyway, yeah, give this deck a try. It's pretty standard, so if you've played Blue Eyes before, it's an easy deck build. Just kind of splash in that trap card for a little spiciness. So anyway, that's it for my casual deck of the week. I will see you next time. Take care.
All right, thanks, Doug. And you can check out Doug's casual deck of the week every week on this podcast. Check out his own Twitter account at Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk. That is it for this week. Upcoming news, Duelist Chronicles GX Bell. We've seen this event a few times already. This might have been one of the original. No, wait, the first one was the Return to Duel Academy, I think. This is like the second one. So new card Armatile, the Chaos Phantom, a new U-Bell skill as well. Mid-June, DSOD Joey gets retired to the gate. Late June, Professional Aster, new cards Apparition and D-Counter. Late June, new DSOD Legendary Duelist. I'm betting money it's Taya. Mid-June, 5Ds level cap to 40. This could happen on Monday, actually, since we are on the 13th of June already. So these 5Ds cards could be discussed soon. And, without saying that the KC Grand Tournament will wrap up in a few days, we're probably going to be in a new meta, new cards, possible balance changes. We need something to shake up the meta going into July and August when the finals happen. And this is going to be the last hurrah before XZ, so enjoying possibly the upcoming final meta of the Synchro era. So that is it for the podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Search anywhere for the Duel Assessment. Spotify is a popular thing now for podcasts. iTunes, Stitcher, whatever. Check out the podcast and more at the website, the Duel Assessment at WordPress.com. Email the Duel Assessment at gmail.com, and find me on Twitter, Duel_Assessment, me at GreenRanger CCG. Alright, so that's it. Good luck with the KC Grand Tournament. Talk to you next time.